British King Charles III has urged nations to stand against tyranny during the D-Day commemoration in France on Thursday. Marking the 80th anniversary of the pivotal Allied landings in Normandy, the King spoke in the French town of Vesoul, honoring the bravery and sacrifice that changed the course of World War II. King Charles paid a tribute to the fallen Allied soldiers, the French civilians who lost their lives, and the courageous members of the French resistance. Reflecting on his experiences, he expressed honor in having met many veterans over the years and listening to their stories firsthand.
Very many of them never came home. They lost their lives on the D-Day landing grounds or in the many battles that followed. It is with the most profound sense of gratitude that we remember them and all those who served at that critical time. We recall the lesson that comes to us again and again across the decades. Free nations must stand together to oppose tyranny.
NATO's top general, Christopher Cavoli, has called for increased production of military equipment, stating that while member nations are prepared to defend themselves, more arms are needed. Speaking as Allied nations commemorate the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings, which marked the beginning of the liberation of France from Nazi occupation, General Cavoli focused on the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine and the potential threat Moscow poses to NATO countries. General Cavoli highlighted that the conflict in Ukraine, along with Kyiv's Western-backed defense, has underscored the immense demand for ammunition and military equipment in modern warfare. Despite this, he notes that defense manufacturers must be faster to scale up the production of essential items such as artillery shells, vehicles, and drones.
Yeah, we need to build more. We need to expand our industrial base, and we need to be able to generate hardware more quickly. I think all the nations in the alliance realize that, and all are working on it. Yes, all the nations in the alliance are studying very carefully what's going on in Ukraine, right? We're trying to learn from it. And then NATO, as an alliance, is also studying it. So we are actually setting up a joint analysis and sort of a lessons learned center with the Ukrainians. It's going to be in Poland. And we're going to take a very deliberate effort to study everything about the conflict so that we can develop from affection of the local people in Normandy for the soldiers who are buried here is remarkable, and we're filled with gratitude for it, and I'm inspired by it every day. It's just a living example of U.S.-French friendship, and also the way an alliance comes together and not only fights a war, but stays together.
President Joe Biden has drawn a poignant parallel between the current struggle of Ukrainians against Russian aggression and the historic fight for freedom on D-Day. Speaking on the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings, Biden emphasized that the spirit of resistance against tyranny remains unchanged as he paid tribute to those who fought in the war. Biden highlighted that Ukraine's battle against dictatorship echoes the Allies' fight for liberty on the beaches of Normandy. He assured that NATO and the international coalition supporting Ukraine are steadfast in their commitment and will not abandon Ukraine in its time of need. Describing NATO as the greatest military alliance in the world, President Biden affirmed that it is more determined than ever to maintain peace and uphold freedom.
Here became heroes. Not because they were the strongest or toughest or fiercest, although they were, but because they were given an audacious mission, knowing, every one of them knew, the probability of dying was real. But they did it anyway. They knew, beyond any doubt, there are things that are worth fighting and dying for. Freedom is worth it. Democracy is worth it. America is worth it.
For more on this, I am joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagan. Afia, give us a bit of context here. What really is D-Day, and why is this anniversary necessary?
Well, D-Day is the name given to this particular day, the 6th of June, where you had the biggest coalition of Allied forces landing on those beaches in France, trying to free northwestern Europe from the rule of Nazi Germany towards the end of the Second World War. It's the largest military seaborne operation ever attempted, and it marked the start of that campaign to liberate Nazi-occupied Northwest Europe. So it involved the simultaneous landing of tens of thousands of troops on 5 separate beaches in Normandy. So you had American troops landing on Omaha Beach, where they actually suffered severe losses. You had British troops, Canadian troops as well landing on separate beaches. There was 7,000 ships and landing craft involved, and 156,000 men and 10,000 vehicles, on these 5 beaches, carefully selected on the stretch of the Normandy coast. And these landings basically took loads of German casualties. Between 4,000 and 9,000 men perished on that day on the German side. And that started the end of the Second World War, basically. They were responsible for taking down that Nazi Germany stronghold. And now French civilians also perished. Thousands of them perished in the D-Day landings, as did thousands of American and British troops also. Now, this is the 80th anniversary of those D-Day landings, and it's especially poignant for a few reasons. First of all, there's less than 100 veterans alive today here in the United Kingdom who remember or who were part of those D-Day landings. Their colleagues died on those beaches or have died over the years, and those veterans range between 90 and 102 years old. And there's less than 100 surviving American veterans as well. One of them, who was 102 years old, actually died making the journey to Normandy this year to try and commemorate the D-Day landing. So for a lot of these veterans, it's the last time that they will be able to commemorate this event. And it's also particularly poignant because we're at a period where there is war in Europe, and that has really come to the forefront of these commemorations.
But how would you describe the attendance? I mean, which international leaders were present at today's event?
I mean, this event was heavily marked. It was heavily and really well attended by world leaders. You had President Joe Biden there, who you saw making a speech. The British monarch, King Charles III, and his son, Prince William, were in attendance. The French President, Emmanuel Macron. You had the Canadian Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. You had various G7 leaders. You had the leader of Germany, Olaf Scholz, and you also had the Ukrainian President, Vladimir Zelensky, was in attendance as well.
But then beyond this commemoration, what other agendas do you suspect these world leaders may have?
Well, particularly with the attendance of Vladimir Zelensky, he is there reminding us all, like I said, that there is a war in Europe, in his country, an invasion by Russia, by Vladimir Putin of the country of Ukraine. And he will also be using that time to speak to various world leaders and reaffirm their support for his offensive against the Russians who are invading Ukraine at the moment. King Charles III gave a speech, and so did President Joe Biden. And in both of those speeches, they referred to tyranny. They didn't refer to Vladimir Putin by name, but they referred to the fact that there is a war ongoing in Europe, and also that lessons should be learned from those wars, that we shouldn't go back to the times where we have war in Europe. They also talked about unity, about the NATO alliance. And it's very true to say that D-Day would not be possible without the coalition forces, American, British, French, and Canadian forces coming together to defeat Nazi-led German forces on that particular day. So yes, there will be lots of behind-the-scenes meetings with all the world leaders. President Zelensky, like I said, will definitely be doing the legwork to make sure that he has those important conversations. Of course, Vladimir Putin and Russia's presence is not there at this celebration. He has not been invited. He has been referred to, if not by name, but in action as well. So yes, very important to be commemorating D-Day and what happened to the thousands of people that lost their lives on those beaches. But it also serves as a reminder of where we are at the moment where it comes to war in Europe and how valuable it is to have an alliance.
Thank you so much for your perspective, Hafia Yegan, our international correspondent. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has announced his support for the deportation of serious criminals, including those from Syria and Afghanistan. The stance comes in the wake of a tragic incident where an Afghan asylum seeker fatally stabbed a police officer. Chancellor Scholz emphasized that acts of terror, including their glorification or celebration, contradict German values and could lead to deportation in the future. Germany has halted deportations to Afghanistan since the Taliban's return to power in 2021 and similarly does not deport individuals to Syria due to ongoing civil unrest. However, the recent attack in Mannheim has sparked renewed debate. A 25-year-old Afghan man went on a knife rampage at an anti-Islam rally, killing a police officer and injuring several others. This incident has intensified discussions on the resumption of deportations to Afghanistan, highlighting the complexity and challenges of balancing security and humanitarian considerations.
In solchen Fällen wiegt das Sicherheitsinteresse Deutschlands schwerer als das Schutzinteresse des Täters. Deshalb sucht das Bundesinnenministerium nach rechtlich und praktisch tragfähigen Wegen, wie das gelingen kann. Das Bundesinnenministerium arbeitet daran, Abschiebungen von Straftätern und Gefährdern nach Afghanistan zu ermöglichen. Über die praktische Umsetzung ist das Bundesministerium bereits mit Nachbarländern Afghanistans im Gespräch. Nicht länger dulden werden wir auch, wenn terroristische Straftaten verherrlicht und gefeiert werden. Das ist ein Schlag ins Gesicht der Opfer, ihrer Angehörigen und unserer demokratischen.
The European Central Bank has announced a significant policy shift, cutting interest rates for the first time since 2019. This decision reduces borrowing costs from record highs, though the ECB provided limited guidance on future moves while cautioning about persistent inflation pressures. The key deposit rate was lowered by a quarter point to 3.75%, and this comes after rates had been held steady since October, following an unprecedented series of hikes beginning in mid-2022 aimed at controlling soaring consumer prices.
The Governing Council today decided to lower the three key ECB interest rates by 25 basis points. Based on our updated assessment of the inflation outlook, the dynamics of underlying inflation and the strength of monetary policy transmission, it is now appropriate to moderate the degree of monetary policy restriction after 9 months.
You're watching Beyond the Continent. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Spain has announced a decision to join South Africa's case at the United Nations Top Court, where Pretoria has accused Israel of genocide in the Gaza Strip. Speaking to journalists on Thursday, Foreign Minister Emmanuel stated that the primary objective is to end the ongoing conflict and advance the implementation of a two-state solution. South Africa brought the case before the International Court of Justice last year, alleging that Israel's offensive in Gaza, which was launched in retaliation for an unprecedented Hamas attack on Israel, violated the 1948 UN Genocide Convention. Israel has strongly denied these accusations.
Lo que nosotros vamos a hacer es, y es aquello que permite el estatuto del tribunal, intervenir en esa demanda apoyando al tribunal en su interpretación de las medidas cautelares que va haciendo y aportando todos aquellos elementos que puedan ayudarle a aplicarlo. sobre lo que es en sí el delito de genocidio. Esa es la labor del tribunal y, como he dicho en muchas ocasiones, por supuesto, España, igual que está haciendo con las medidas cautelares, apoyará la decisión que tome el Tribunal Internacional de Justicia.
Israeli forces have launched a devastating airstrike on the United Nations-affiliated school in central Gaza, killing at least 40 displaced Palestinians who were taking refuge there. The attack, which occurred in the early hours of Thursday, also left more than 70 people injured. Gaza's government media office and the health ministry have confirmed the tragic death toll, which includes 14 children and 9 women. The strike targeted the Al-Sadi school and nearby homes in the Nuseirat refugee camp. Hamas, the governing authority in Gaza, has condemned the bombing, labeling it as horrible massacre. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has confirmed the operation, stating that it was aimed at eliminating terrorists allegedly planning attacks against Israeli forces. This bombing comes as Israel intensifies its offensive in Gaza, despite ongoing efforts by the United States and international mediators to broker a ceasefire agreement. In the meantime, Israeli government spokesperson David Mensa has announced that military executed a precise strike on the Hamas compound located within a United Nations Relief and Works Agency school in the Nuseirat area of central Gaza. Speaking at a press conference in Tel Aviv on Thursday, Mensa emphasized that the school was carefully targeted and hit with precision. He adds that the strike, which took place just before 2 a.m., successfully eliminated several militants.
Last night, a Hamas compound embedded inside an UNRWA school. A Hamas compound embedded inside an UNRWA school in the area of Nuseirat was precisely targeted and hit. The school had terrorists who actually took part in the murderous attack of October the 7th. We took them out. 3 rooms in the school, in the building, were used by Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists. We assessed that 20 to 30 terrorists were in the compound at the time of the strike. We targeted with precision strikes on the specific classrooms, What we know, of course, we know that the terrorists were, what they were doing inside a UN school, they were hiding. The compound was used for staging attacks and as a forward operating base. Our strike was based on intelligence and used precise munitions, using surveillance and intelligence. You know, we actually called it off twice just to be sure that we were precise and to limit any unwanted.
Meanwhile, Gaza residents are expressing deep concern for their safety amid an ongoing Israeli offensive. They claim that no place was safe for them any longer following an Israeli airstrike on a United Nations-linked school. The Israeli military claimed the school was being used by Hamas. Israel has accused Hamas and its allies in Gaza of utilizing civilian infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and facilities run by UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, as operational centers. These accusations have, however, been strongly denied by the militant. The recent airstrike comes as US, Qatari, and Egyptian mediators have resumed talks aimed at securing a truce and a hostage prisoner swap following the nearly 8-month conflict that began with a mass attack on Israel on October the 7th. And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba. Bye.